On. The ever so wonderful, as always, Kevin Glint did a commissioned piece for someone called High Class Waffle, which has a beautiful name. This is Trinity and Vauban. Their Trinity's name is Willow, and their Vauban's name is Rune. Pairing together, Trinity has these angelic aesthetic going
When
on.
do we get Kondrak signed Dana's boys?
Boys,
Come on.
how many Kondrak we gotta kill to get ourselves
Give me a
pair
number.
of wings?
It's done. Consider it done.
Need it. Already got it up there. Make it happen, DE. Come on. This is beautiful.
Stunning.
Just look at Vauban, and he's always like derpy looking at me.
He is not. He is a handsome, stoic man.
He is handsome. But there's a part of him, he just looks like a penguin.
What? 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 Why?
Oh, come on. You don't think so?
No, I do not think he
Vauban
looks.
Prime looks like a penguin.
He does not. He looks like a train. A power train.
Penguin train.
Power
His
train.
face of a penguin. He's got the beak and the head. Come on, chat. You know he looks like a penguin. Penguin train.
Don't even.
He absolutely does. I'm sure if I search penguin Vauban,
I doubt you'll get anything.
got lots of penguins.
Nothing.
I had to put Warframe in.
Nothing. Nothing.
Come on now.
Zero search
Google
results.
why you failed me.
Safe search on, safe search off. Zero. Nothing. Nothing. Don't you dare.
Someone turned him into Thomas the Tank Engine, though.
See? Name a more handsome train than Thomas. There's nothing.
Good fan.
There you go. Derpy train.
Train.
Derpy train. There, Meg gets her. But no penguin at all.
He looks like a penguin. Moving on.
The next station will be Fortuna 69.
Everyone knows that the AI in-game is rather lacking, especially when it comes to companions. As a quick example, here's the statistics from last year of the most used companions for Warframe. It should come to no surprise that Sentinels are by far the most popular companions taken, with the exception of the Smita Kavat, because Smita Kavats are an absolute blessing. Some people would say that it doesn't matter if Kubrals aren't exactly top tier when compared to Sentinels, because at the end of the day, having fun is what matters. Although I agree with its statement to some extent, just because something is fun doesn't mean people are going to actually use it. If that were the case, we would have a lot more people running around with Swing Line, and Lunaro would be a hell of a lot more popular than it is now. In my opinion, AI is one of the systems in Warframe that is in most need of an upgrade and/or rework, mostly because companion AI is, for lack of a better term, bad. Although Sentinels can't be infinitely revived like other companions, they offer a much better alternative compared to most other choices purely because they can't run off and die somewhere across the map. Since Sentinels always stay close to the player, there's never any worry about having to go rescue a companion that just so happened to die right behind a nullifier and a crowd of enemies. In a nutshell, Sentinels never go out of their way to inconvenience the player by dying in faraway areas, getting stuck on terrain, or demanding upkeep to remain at max health capacity. Not even taking into account that the majority of the time, Sentinels just have better abilities to offer compared to Kubrals. It really is a shame, because non-Sentinel companions such as most do offer interesting alternatives on paper, but because they aren't exactly durable or intelligent, they really fall short. It isn't just companion AI that needs to be addressed, but also enemy AI. As it stands in the game, enemies in high-level areas oftentimes kill you not because they outsmarted you or anything, but because they outdamaged you for a split second. By the time you start reaching levels where enemies can kill you in less than 5 seconds, their armor and damage scales up, but not their intelligence, meaning that you're basically fighting highly resilient and highly trained rocks. If you apply that to companions like Kubrals, it's easier to understand why they're so unpopular to begin with. They're incredibly squishy to start with, which is never a good thing when going against enemies that get stronger as the levels get higher, but also because companion AI doesn't get any benefits like enemy AI does. Your companion doesn't deal more damage, gain more health, or becomes able to use their abilities more frequently as the game session gets longer. Enemies do, and that's part of the reason why non-Sentinel companions get shit on so hard. Summoned companions like Kaura's Venery, Wukong's Celestial Twin, and other similar things don't really fall under this because they're either capable of dealing considerable amounts of damage, or they have essentially no limit on how many times they can be spawned. Besides, the simple AI needs to get severely overhauled. New behaviors and reactions should be added for both enemies and companions. For instance, enemies could start taking evasion action if a Warframe kills multiple targets within a short amount of time with an ability or with a weapon. Enemies could start attempting to get out of sight of the player in order to surprise them from a different direction, because after all, Warframes are literally walking biomechanical warriors, so they should be considered as such. On the other hand, I think it would be an improvement for companions to have their abilities changed to a command style in order to greater benefit the player. For instance, the player could press a button to have their companion use their ability instantly, which would then go on cooldown for a limited duration. Additionally, the companion should also have different behavior settings available. It would be interesting if the player could decide how their companion behaves, whether it be aggressive and constantly out by itself, passively and constantly following the player, or defensively and always being within affinity distance of the player. In a way, this behavioral setting can be considered an offshoot of Kaura's Venery. Again, just because something is fun is not and never will be a legitimate excuse to make it not enticing or viable. All that does is add on to the ever-growing pile of things nobody in Warframe cares about, like Conclave. As stupid as this sounds, nobody except for the players who still have content to go through in Warframe do things for fun anymore. All we're doing is waiting around for more content to drop so we can find new things to do with our time, besides complaining about the lack of things to do. Thank you for watching.